In this video, you are gonna learn about all kinds of contrast in miniature painting and how to approach it when you are working on your models. Have you ever wondered why do I keep on wearing this same blue t-shirt? Well, this is not because I wanna look like Steve from Minecraft, but because with the dark red background, it creates a nice contrast, which is more pleasant and readable for your eyes. And this is exactly why you wanna create a contrast on your miniature. You wanna make it readable and make your eyes happy by looking at it because there is some nice diversity. So what are actually different types of contrast? Well, contrast by itself is a difference. So you can have difference in size, texture, shape, but let's start with the most obvious one, and that is color. Looking at this miniature, you can see the first kind of contrast, and that is in hue. What is quite pleasant for the eye is the difference between the purple and the yellowish brown color around it. The color choice here is intentional, because purple and yellow are naturally complementary colors. When you are thinking about this kind of contrast, it's always a good idea to look at the color wheel. Example of another good color combination is green and red. So that is why Gloomspite Git Squigs and Goblins work so nicely. Notice that this is the case even though the red is saturated and the green is desaturated. So when I come back to this platypus, you can see that yellow is not fully saturated version of its hue, but more brownish and dark yellow. At the same time, you can see the second type of contrast when we talk about colors, and that is in value. Value simply refers to how light is the color. Look at his lovely hat. You can see where is the shade and where is the highlight, because magenta placed on top of it has higher value and the purple below it is more dark and therefore has lower value. Naturally, some colors by themselves have lower value. So if you take all colors at 100% saturation, meaning there is no white or black added, colors like red and especially blue will be darker over colors like green and yellow. So certainly you can add black to further shade your miniature, but adding blue works as well. This is also one of the reasons why creating blue glow effect will be more difficult over creating green or yellow light source, since you will have to add a lot of white and lose the intensity of your blue. Some painters use this knowledge to not only shade the miniature with dark red, blue and purple, but to also use yellow to highlight the miniature. That way you create both contrast in value and hues at the same time. Now coming back to this platypus miniature for the last time, I want to point out that these parts and these parts are painted with exactly the same paints. But as you can already guess, the contrast here and here is pushed, so you can see very dark shades and very light reflections right next to each other. That way these parts look metallic while these don't. When someone tells you to push contrast a little bit more, which let's be honest, that's pretty basic advice, they usually mean value. So that means lighter reflections and darker shades. And if you push it far enough, the object can look metallic. Of course, you will have to balance things like smoothness and saturation. So for smoothness, I already have like 5 videos on blending, but don't sacrifice too much contrast for smoothness. In regards to overall effect, the placement of light is the most important. Even if you have similar hues and saturation on a miniature, it can still work that way. Additionally, highlighting the edges and blacklining the recesses adds to readability of your miniature, since you increase value on exposed edges and decrease it in shades. So even these very basic techniques work with contrast. When we consider different types of contrast, you can see on this Sister of Battle miniature that her armor is very sharp and blocky, while her face is more soft, round and natural. So while the rest of the miniature looks very artificial, the head stands out because it's very different. But you know, face is center of attention anyway. Furthermore, you can see difference in texture. For example, using dry pigment on a base really sells how rough and dusty it is in comparison to shiny new armor or metallic parts, which should look cleaner. But even some metallic parts can be weathered. So if you look at this Plague Marine, these bells and these bells both look metallic. But since the ones on his weapon should be more weathered and damaged, they are not as smooth, but the high contrast of metallic objects is still there. By the way, I talk about contrast in textures more in one of my other videos, so feel free to check it out if you want. But most of the time you are gonna make a difference in how damaged, weathered, rusty and rough the material is, or how new and reflective it is, or anything in between. Keep in mind that you can also create a nice contrast between the miniature itself and the base, which is pretty obvious here, for example. So if you think that you should add some complementary color or add variety to texture, using a base for that is pretty good idea. Whatever you do, I would personally always prefer to exaggerate certain things on a miniature, even if it costs a little bit of smoothness. Because if you're able to exaggerate things like light or ambience, it will be much easier to sell it. So today we didn't really paint a lot, but I truly think that understanding these concepts is way more important than understanding two-brush wet blending or whatever. If you have any feedback for me, leave it down in the comment section, subscribe if you haven't already, and see you guys in the next one. Bye!